All right. Hi there, people. Um, I was in Ottawa today. I went to downtown Ottawa and up around the Parliament buildings, and I took some pictures. I shot some videos of the Parliament buildings on Wellington Street, and I shot some video up Bank Street and along Gladstone Avenue and all that. I'm eating my meal I bought at the grocery store, my chicken and my fries, my wedge fries. Anyway, I'm sitting here as I'm eating, I'm thinking about something. You know, it's interesting that those of us who present more of a conservative and more of a Christian viewpoint were told by those on the opposite end of the spectrum, on the far left, I guess, as opposed to being on the right, or far right as they call us, I guess. I don't really consider myself far right, but I know many people would, especially people who are on the left, leaning to the left of things. But I'll tell you something. As somebody who has more conservative viewpoint and comes at things from more of a Christian perspective than an atheist or a more than a worldly perspective, I've been told that my God is a violent prick who murders everybody and throws them into hell to be tortured and all that. I've been told that that I am a violent prick and that I want to lynch Negroes and that I want to beat and kill homosexuals and transsexuals and all the rest of it. Funny thing is, though, here's the kicker to the whole thing. It very seldom happens. It very seldom happens that somebody on the conservative side of things and on the Christian side of things goes crazy and and kills a bunch of people, or shoots one of his opponents, one of the people that is on the opposite side of things from him, like what happened to Charlie Kirk this week. Charlie Kirk never shot at anybody, but he got shot to death. And now there's a bunch of people on the internet gloating about it. Ha ha ha, they're saying. Yeah, there you go. You wanted people to have guns? Well, there you go. Um, Here's the thing. Charlie Kirk wanted people to have their constitutionally guaranteed rights, whatever those rights happen to be, because Charlie Kirk believed in the U.S. Constitution. And he believed that it was dangerous to start clawing those rights back, because when you start doing that, where does it end? And so he wanted the people to have their full rights under the law of the land, which is the Constitution. They're God-given rights, by the way. That violent prick that kills everybody actually turns out he gives people rights. Who knew? We kind of knew, didn't we? Anyway, like I say, I've heard all this crazy talk from people on the left of everything about how I'm violent and my God is violent, and I'm hateful and my God is hateful. When one of them dies, I don't gloat about it. I mean, I got to admit, there's times I've wished that our prime minister here, when Trudeau was in charge, and now this other one, Carney, I wish they'd be held to account and either jailed or executed for the crimes they've committed. But that's a different thing than wishing for somebody to be murdered, to be just gunned down like a dog in the street, just like a rabid dog in the street, without any due process. As much as I dislike Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney, and believe me, I dislike them. A lot. I would not want to see them denied due process if they ever were charged for the crimes that I believe they've committed. And here's why. Because it's indecent. You know, to punish people without due process is indecent. It's the sort of thing that's done in a dictatorship. And the reason that I dislike those two as much as I do is because I believe they're taking us into a dictatorship. I believe that neither of them would have any trouble punishing me, jailing me, or putting me to death without due process. And I don't want to be like them. So I would want them to have due process if that were to happen. I don't believe it ever will happen, but if it were to happen, I would want for them to have due process as they're entitled to, you know? Oh, hi, Rocky. Hey, would you like some chicken? I didn't even know he was there. All right, I'll give you some chicken, okay? It's good stuff, sweetheart. He's getting into position. He knows there's chicken coming. I got to eat the batter off it because you don't like the batter. You just like your chicken clean, eh? Look at that. There's a piece of chicken. There you go. It's behind you, sweetie. Look, 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 look. There you go. Sometimes it's a little tough. All right. I have to, I just realized I have to get the stove going here. I've got my power bank up at the house recharging it as we speak. I need to get the stove going though. Anyway, the thing is, it's funny though, they accuse us of doing what they do. You don't see a lot of conservatives going around. In fact, I haven't seen any going around doing all this awful violent stuff that we're told that we want to do. You know? I mean, I haven't heard tell of any ethnic minorities being lynched in recent history. And the funny thing is, too, those people that were lynched, most of them were lynched by the Klan, by the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan was actually founded, get this now, by Democrats. It was founded by Democratic, you know, by liberals, by Democrats. One of the founding members was a man by the name of Albert Pike. And Albert Pike was quite a character. Albert Pike was a politician. He was a Democratic politician. Died in the wool racist, Freemason, and founder of the Ku Klux Klan. And Albert Pike actually wrote books or letters. I guess they were more like letters that he wrote that were later on incorporated into books, where he very vividly described the 20th century, including World War I and World War II. He described the circumstances under which both would happen, which he was right about, and he described different things about the technology that would exist in the fighting of those wars, which again he was right about. Things that couldn't even be imagined in the 1800s when he was writing about them. Anyway, I'll tell you, so even at that, even when that stuff was a common occurrence, and there was a time that it was, especially in the southern states, if you were down in Mississippi or Alabama or somewhere like that, it wouldn't be unusual to see things like that happen, you know. And if you were a person of color, you were always in danger of that happening to you. It didn't take very much. But, like I say, the people behind it were actually Democrats. And yes, they pretended to be Christian. They hid behind Christianity while they were doing these awful things. But they weren't really Christian. You know, that they were Christian in name only. They weren't Christian in spirit. They certainly weren't Christian in practice. no true Christian could do the things those people did, you know. So they weren't Christian. They claimed that they were, but they weren't. I mean, look, I could claim to be anything. I could claim to be a radical. I could claim to be, I don't know, a liberal or a Democrat. I could claim to be transgender and homosexual. I could claim to favor abortion, or free access to abortion. I could claim to hate God. And then I could go out and do a horrible thing, you know, and then the people who I claim to identify with, um, I guess they'd all be held to account for what I did, seeing as how I identified as one of them. If we follow that to its logical conclusion, I guess that's what would happen. I don't know. I kind of doubt that would happen somehow. It seems like only the conservative people and the Christian people are tarred with the same brush. But the thing is, there we go, we got fire. The thing is, though, I doubt that even Charlie Kirk's most vocal opponent, if somebody that Charlie Kirk really disliked, and who was completely, let's say, one of Charlie Kirk's biggest detractors, was to be murdered, I don't believe for a minute that Charlie Kirk would gloat about that. I really don't. I just can't see it happening. And yet we got these people on the internet gloating, you know. I mean, okay, if something were to happen to Kamala Harris, Charlie Kirk does not like Kamala Harris, but he certainly would not have wanted something like what happened to him to happen to her. And he would have been one of the very first to go before the cameras and say, look, I disagreed with her and I didn't particularly like her, but this is a horrible thing. This should not have happened. You know, I honestly believe he would do that. And it kind of breaks my heart that people don't extend him that same courtesy. You know, just because you disagree with somebody doesn't mean you gotta kill them or wish them dead or whatever, you know, or be happy that they died or that some horrible thing happened to them. Like, and again, like I say, this is what we're accused of. We're accused of being those kinds of people. And yet, when you look at the record, who's practicing that sort of thing? If there's any of us doing that, they're few and far between. Anybody who identifies the way I identify, for example, there is being more of a leaning towards conservatism and Christianity. Um, if anybody like me is doing that stuff, they're few and far between. But it seems to be really common. These shootings are, you know, people from the transsexual community. You find out, but they shot Donald Trump. You know, he turned his head and they got him in the ear instead of getting him through the eye, which would have killed him. But they did shoot him. They hit him just a fraction of an inch. That's all it would take, and he'd have died right on the spot. Like I say, they've shot Charlie Kirk. There have been incidents where places have been shot up. There were a bunch of Catholic school children killed not too long ago by a member of the transgender community. Now, this certainly isn't to say that everybody on the left is like that. I don't believe that's true. But there are a disproportionate number who are, compared with the ones who are like that on my side of the fence. And yet people on my side of the fence are constantly accused of being racist and homophobic and having some weird bloodlust where we want to go out and hurt people and slaughter people and all the rest of it. When all we really want is some common sense and a world, and to live in a world where we have a live and let live philosophy. That's all I want anyway. Look, I don't care what you do. I mean, just leave me alone about it. That's all. I don't need to celebrate this or that or the other thing that goes against my conscience and against my faith in order to satisfy you that I'm not a danger to you. It's insanity. And you know what? I won't force the Bible down your throat. You know, I won't tell you anything if you just leave me alone. But if you're coming after me, you're going to hear. You're going to hear from me if you're coming after me. And that's the thing. And right now, they're coming after me. They're coming after all of us on my side of the fence. Because they can't just let us be. We have to be eliminated. And it's them that's doing it. It isn't us. Yet we're the ones accused of doing it. Just look at the numbers, though. The numbers will tell you the true story. You know? Anyway, that's it. I don't know what else to say. I think there's just a crazy world. We're living in just a crazy world. And the thing is, I do believe in God. And I do believe that God loves us all, even the people who are complete polar opposite to what I am. I think God loves them too. Even though many of them hate him, I think God loves them too. I was talking to a guy, I was actually on a job, and I was talking to the man I was working for. And he said to me, he said, God must laugh at how the people, how people are at each other's throats all the time over him. And I got thinking about that after the fact. I didn't say very much at the time, but I got thinking after the fact, and I thought, no, I don't think God laughs about that. I think God weeps about it. I think it breaks his heart. I think what happened this week, where one of God's creations took a gun and took another of God's creations out of the game, a human being who is of great value to God, went and took another human being who was of equally great value to God out of the game. Took him right out. I think that makes God sad. I think it makes God weep when we do things like that to each other. I think God mourns the deaths of those who hate him just as much as he mourns the deaths of those who love him. In fact, more. Even more. And I think if anybody from my side of the camp, from my side of the fence, goes and does that to somebody from the other side, even though those people don't like God, I think God would be completely heartbroken by that. And the thing is, I think the same is true with what's actually happening, where people from that side are taking out people on our side of it. And the fact that there even are sides, the fact that there is a fence and there's sides, I think that breaks God's heart too. Anyway, that's it. We'll talk to you later.